the game.
Hi, I'm Kelsa Dickey, the CEO of the Financial Coach Academy and my financial coaching business, Fiscal Fitness Phoenix. My coaching journey began more than a decade ago with me helping people for free from my dining room table. What was once a little business of mine has grown into a 7-figure company that employs a team of people. My goal is simple: to help you fall more and more in love with financial coaching. I believe financial coaching is the most rewarding way to make a living. If you are an aspiring financial coach or have been coaching for years, I'm here to help you create a business you love that gets your clients massive results. Let's get to it. Hey Coach, our Ultimate Growth Guide for Financial Coaches is now available as a 7-episode bingeable training that transforms how you grow your business. It is perfect for learning during your commute, workout, and morning coffee. Want to know exactly how I went from giving free advice at my dining room table to running a 7-figure coaching business that's helped hundreds achieve financial success? My Ultimate Growth Guide is your roadmap. Find out more by going to financialcoachacademy.com/ultimate growth guide. And for this episode, I actually have a review from Joshua. Joshua says, I finally made it to the program design module of the Financial Coach Academy, and I can tell you it's on fire. After finally sitting down to work on drafting my first program, I have so much more clarity than I could have imagined. Before the module, I had a ton of ideas and thoughts bouncing around my head that made me feel really overwhelmed and uncertain on how exactly to proceed with laying out an effective program. But the way FCA lays out a clear path for program design has made it all so clear now. This module alone has been worth the entire investment to me. And the crazy thing is, there's so much more in the program I haven't gotten to, plus bonus modules to enhance the financial coaching knowledge and skills. He continues, this is an unpaid endorsement. It's not every day you come across a course creator with the authenticity and value Kelsa Dickey has built FCA with. So I find it an honor to share my experience. Quality programs deserve praise. Thank you, FCA team, as well. Thank you so much, Joshua. I appreciate you taking the time to share how impactful FCA has been for you. It makes me so happy to hear that it has brought you clarity to all of your ideas so that you can feel confident helping your clients with their money. I cannot wait for you to continue exploring all that FCA has to offer because there is so much more, just like you said. All right, Coach. Last week, we talked about creating time and space in your calendar to work on your business instead of just in your business. Your homework was to set aside some time so you can create space in your calendar to do just that. Did you do your homework, Coach? Today, we are going to talk to one of our FCA graduates about how he does this. Plus, he's going to share about how he's niched down and is able to take action quickly in his business. Billy Hofacker is a financial coach who specializes in helping fitness professionals and business owners improve their cash flow, reduce financial stress, and achieve long-term success. With over 25 years of experience as a personal trainer and the owner of Total Body Bootcamp in Long Island, New York, Billy uniquely understands the challenges faced by entrepreneurs in the fitness industry. After navigating his own financial turnaround, Billy has become passionate about empowering others to take control of their finances. He is the author of Fitness Profits and the host of Your Fitness Money Coach podcast, a leading resource for financial education tailored to fitness professionals. Based now in Clarksville, Tennessee, Billy continues to guide his clients toward financial freedom through his coaching programs and mastermind groups. Billy, hello, my friend. How are you, Coach? What's new?
I'm great, Kelsa. I'm excited to be with you today.
I am so excited. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you've got a lot going on. Let's dive right in. I like to just dive into the deep end, and then we'll circle back to maybe some of the beginning steps of your business. But what is something you feel you do really well in your business that other financial coaches have asked you about?
That is good. A lot of times, people that come to me, I have sort of two answers. One is what you're asking, and one is a slight variation. So what they sort of think they need help with, and a lot of times it's just understanding their numbers. Lots of businesses, not just fitness businesses, you read a book like The E-Myth Revisited, and that's the whole premise of the book, is that I'm a good plumber, I'm a good electrician. So what do? I open up a plumbing business or an electrical business, and then I realize the plumbing and the electrical is the least of what I have to do. I have to understand a P&L. I have to understand how to budget and forecast. And they are stressed out, confused. And the other piece I was going to mention, I don't know if this is important to go there, but it's just that I think one of the things that makes me a little bit different as a coach is similar to you, it's not just the X's and the O's, because a lot of people think that's what they need. Like they think they just, if I could only have the magic spreadsheet or something. But the reality is coaching is so much more than that, as you know, as much as anybody, when it comes down to deeper needs that people have.
Yeah, I totally agree. One thing that I observe you doing really well, Billy, is you take really fast action and you genuinely figure things out as you go along. You often mention in the times you ask a question or you're making a shift in your business and you're asking a question in the mastermind and that sort of thing, you often mention building the plane as you fly it. Overall, I believe that this plays to your favor, but I'm curious from you, what do you see as some of the pros and cons of doing this?
That's good. The pros are that it's really the only way. I think everybody should embrace that at some level. Maybe I'm a little more extreme or maybe not, but I think you have to. If you're always building the plane, then you're never flying it. So you have to do the thing. You get better, you learn as you go. I heard a quote recently that I think helped me do that even more. And it was this idea, Dan Sullivan talks about who, not how. But this person was saying it's now, not how. And it's just
Ooh,
by doing it now, I am going to learn that, like, some of the recent things I've been doing and been asking about are good examples of that. Like I've never run a mastermind and all these types of things. But how am I going to learn? I'm going to start it, and we'll go from there. And I think at some level, another advantage is I think at some level, as long as you do it with a good heart and I'm not doing things half butt, like I'm really making sure I'm doing it as best as I can with excellent service, then I think the clients kind of enjoy that. They
hmm
learn through the process, they kind of see what you're doing. And I think it's a good example because they need to do the
hmm
same thing. They need to just
yeah.
do their budget. They need to just practice these different habits when they're not super comfortable for them. For them, it's new. The downside is so the difference for me is I believe that I do take quick action, but it's thoughtful quick action. I
hmm
think the downside is that you can just take action that maybe isn't the ideal action for you. And I'm not saying I've never done that, but some of the things that look on the outside like I'm taking quick action, they are things that have been brewing for a while and I have been thinking about them. And then I'm like, let's go. Now's the time. So yeah, there are definitely two sides to it.
I love that. Yeah, I definitely see you taking quick action. I can tell that you've thought about things for a while, of course, but I guess what I mean is that you don't spend time endlessly building and getting all of the details organized and having it all mapped
Yes.
out and built and created and designed and everything before you take
Yeah.
action. And so I really commend you for that. And I do think your service to your clients and ultimately how much you care about not just your
Yeah.
clients and the people you're serving, but the job you do and the quality of the job you do is so
Hmm.
non-negotiable to you that it does show in what you do. So even though it's imperfect and it's a little messy action, if you will, I do think your clients respond really well to it. I always say if you are so focused on being perfect and creating perfect content or having all the perfect
Hmm.
systems, it's actually harder for your clients because they feel as if they need to be perfect too. And that is an
Yeah.
impossible standard to meet. And so it sort of removes any vulnerability or, just that first step can be a lot scarier for them to take. Now, I'm curious because I mentioned in your bio that financial coaching isn't your first business. Do you think that
Hmm.
that plays a role in your ability to take action despite not always having like the whole plan laid out in front of you or knowing every detail? In other words, I guess, Billy, what I'm asking is, have you always been like this, even with your first business when you first started it? Or is this something you grew into because you sort of learned that this is the way it works?
Man, that is so good. I've actually haven't really thought about that, but it reminds me of two things. So short answer is yes, to a certain extent, I have been wired that way. But I also think that coming from the fitness background as a personal trainer, that's something that I have been preaching to people forever. Like just put the darn sneakers on and get outside and go for a walk. Like take those small actions and just get going. And that definitely translates to this business or really any business.
It's amazing how it's all connected. And this is one of the reasons why I think you and I can connect so well is because we've got that whole fitness lingo and just the
Yeah.
similarities and the analogies that we both can so easily relate to. But I think that that is so true. And yeah, I think business has taught me to trust myself. that I can trust really and truly, like no matter what happens, even if I fail at something, right, that it's going to be valuable. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to make it right, right? That even if I make a mistake with a client, I've learned to trust that outcome or that process sort of thing and learn to trust myself in that process. So I have no doubt that even though I'm definitely a faster action taker than some people when they first start, it is something that I've gotten better at because of experience in business, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, just to your earlier point about building a plane while you fly it, there's almost nothing worse than taking forever to create something and then people don't want it. So I think that's just another takeaway.
People don't want it. Or, I mean, we were just talking before we hit record here about how advancements in technology has changed so rapidly that like the way you create a podcast now is different than a year from now or different from a year ago. And like, if you're so focused on designing it perfectly, by the time you launch anything, things are going to change, right? And then you're back at the drawing board all over again. I'm curious, we've talked about niching before on this podcast, and I think it's pretty clear that you're uniquely positioned to help your niche. Like you talked about the experience that you've had, but I'm curious about sort of your personal story and how it aligns. It is very normal oftentimes for a coach to not want to have anything to do with their past profession when they first start their business. They sort of like want to get as far away from it as possible. And then sometimes they do sort of come back to it and find, oh, actually, I am perfectly positioned because I understand the lingo or I understand the subtle needs or desires that a person has if they've been in that profession, for example, like owning a personal training business or a gym or like that kind of thing. I'm curious if you felt that transition early. Did you immediately go right into helping personal trainers in the sort of the fitness profession when you started your financial coaching business? Did you hesitate? Just speak a little bit to that.
All right. So it started with I sometimes call it my financial awakening. And we all have this, a lot of us have this that are financial coaches. This is going back, was it 2010? I was working as a personal trainer. I had not opened my brick and mortar facilities yet. It was right before, which is another whole nother story for a different day, but it's actually right before I opened my facility. But I was working as a personal trainer and I'm getting ready for work in the morning, get a knock on the door, open it, and I see this jacked, bald dude covered in tattoos standing on my stoop. Look past him and I see my brand new white Honda Accord hooked up to his tow truck. And that was the moment. Our car was being repossessed. That was our wake-up call. We discovered, that sounds like an odd word, especially as a financial coach, we discovered that we had $130,000 in non-mortgage debt. It was overwhelming. Fast forward 5 years, we paid that off, and then we continued the journey. And so I always had this story. I didn't share it that much. It didn't really feel like it was appropriate. So I started developing my business, used the business in a lot of ways. That debt was all, I mentioned that I had not opened my gym yet. So all of that debt was from other things. A lot of it was personal stuff, past. It wasn't a lot of business debt, to be honest. It's almost a better story if I said it was because my gyms were collapsing and then I turned it all around. Actually, a little bit different than I actually used my gyms, I believe, wisely to learn. I learned from my past behavior, do it differently with the business. I had no choice, really. I had no choice. I had to be responsible. I was really in a lot of trouble if I didn't turn this thing around. Newly married, about to start a family. And thankfully, it worked out well. Opened up a gym and then opened up a second one, did some other things. And then a lot of people were asking me, I hadn't really shared a ton about the financial side, but I at all these different masterminds and workshops and events, and people started asking me about my business because I would sharing about how the business was doing, and they would ask a lot. And I ended up dabbling in business coaching first. I ended up partnering with a mentor of mine in the fitness entrepreneurial space. We did some things together, and I took on some private clients. And then COVID happened. And those clients I was working with, I realized like how much of the help turned directly to the finances. And that's where it really started coming together. Like all this experience that I have, my own personal financial journey. At that point, and COVID was 2020. So I had been in the gym business now for like 10 years. And I started really moving more toward that. And that's when I wrote the book, started the podcast, started the programs. Talk about taking action. I was sitting in I say basement. It was really like the first level of my house where my office was. It sounds better. Like I'm in my
Yeah.
basement and I'm
Yeah.
sitting there. I'm not allowed to go to my gym. I'm in New York, which was really strict.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't allowed. At one point, I wasn't allowed to be in my gym by myself. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, what do I do? How do I help these people? And that's when I started the podcast. And that was definitely something that I was super uncomfortable with. I am not, people think maybe that I'm technical because I have the podcast, but I knew nothing about it. I literally looked it up on YouTube and here we go. We're like, I don't know, like a lot of episodes, hundreds of episodes in.
I was going to ask you what episode number you're on if you know off the top of your head, but
Yeah, it's a lot. It's in the hundreds, two something.
that's awesome. And then, so it was a very natural segue. There was no, it didn't feel like a departure necessarily. It actually just felt like a very natural transition that you were helping these individuals, and now finances is coming up for everybody as a natural thing because of COVID. So it sort of started those conversations. And then did you realize that you were shifting to offering financial coaching? Was that a deliberate decision, or was it sort of a random, like, I'm just going to start talking about these things?
Yeah, well, I didn't know who Kelso was at this point, right? I'm just doing my thing. I'm working with people and I didn't know what else to do. I thought, see, this is something that it was definitely a natural transition. I was literally driving to the bank. I'll never forget it. I was driving to Chase Bank to take out some money or something, and it just like hit me. I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm uniquely positioned to do it. I'm just like the money nerd. I'm so passionate about it. These people, they need so much help in this area. That's when that really kicked in for me. That's when I started doing all this. But at first I was trying to be smart with my time. I still had two brick and mortar facilities. So I decided to start a group program. It was it was an 8-week course with some modules and some live accountability, like weekly Zooms. That was really the start of it. I had started working with private clients that I was already working with, and I gradually started taking on more private clients. But the focus at first was that 8-week program, and then I found that I really wanted to do more private coaching. I liked it better. I thought it was making a greater impact. I thought that it was better for me to really get intimate with people in terms of what they were dealing with and helping them. And that's what I'm doing now, more of. And now kind of went back again and started this the group stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a very natural segue that I sort of speak to on this podcast, that the one-to-one work really informs group work. So you started with group work, but then, I mean, in some sense, I'm not surprised that it maybe wasn't as impactful as what you were hoping, because it is a bit too general. You're trying to pay attention to way too many factors and way too many people and way too many needs all at one time when you're first starting. And then you go into one-to-one work, you get really clear on who you're helping, what you're helping them with, the type of coach you are, the advice you're giving, what are the high points, what are the low points in that journey. And then it's so much easier to take all those patterns and then create, like you have a mastermind now, that group program, that is such a easier and smarter way to go about it, right? That's really truly where then you're creating leverage through income and impact both. But if you start with that one-to-one work, it really makes that transition so much easier. I know you've alluded to this a little bit, but I want to have you just touch on it more specifically. What challenges have your clients come to you with that is unique to your niche? Because I do think there are some really specific that you are just perfectly aligned to help with.
That is such a good segue, because I was actually wanting to share this. When I started, I helped people with a lot of the things that I felt really qualified, which were the things that I did. So I helped them get out of debt, start working a budget. I still do that, but I think that's evolved a bit in that I have all this other experience running a gym, running multiple gyms, it's still a small business, but in our sphere, it was like a large staff. And those are a lot of issues that people deal with, especially as they relate to the finances. So now I'm finding myself doing a little bit more of that. I have more clients that are in a position where they may want to expand, whether that's opening up additional locations or expanding their services, or just kind of doing something else with their money because they're trying to build their wealth. So I'm finding that to be really enjoyable. I like it all, but I find that I'm in a unique position to help them with healthy growth, I guess we could call it. So growth that involves just good strategy, good decisions, and making sure that they're tying their business goals to their personal goals and their financial goals. So that's the stuff I think I'm really positioned to do, and I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, and I think that that's a perfect example of a time where you took fast action, because I remember you were like, hey, I've got these clients who are now asking me for business strategies and growth strategies, and
Yeah.
I'm realizing I know this stuff. I don't have a
Yeah.
perfectly designed program that I can put them through or offer them or anything like that, but I can help them, right? I remember you being like, I can do this, right, Kelson? I was like, absolutely, go for it,
Yes.
Billy. But also, I just
Yeah.
want to say, would you just call it healthy growth? Is that what you said? I
Yeah.
don't know if that is
Yep.
literally the name of your program, but it's perfect branding with what you do. So
I like it.
I just want you to like jot yourself a little note real quick that just came about perfectly. Now you also spoke to your podcast, and your podcast offers a great opportunity for marketing your financial coaching business. I'm curious how you structure your time to be able to publish your podcast regularly while also serving clients, being a dad and a husband and all those types of things. So can you just speak to your time management?
Yes, and that is a work in progress for sure. It has evolved. When I first started, I was the head cook and bottle washer. I did every single part of the podcast. As a financial coach, like a lot of us, I tend to lean towards the frugal side, especially when something is new and it's not proven yet. I had friends that were starting podcasts, and they were outsourcing everything, and some of them they stopped doing the podcast because they kind of I think overextended themselves. I wanted to be real careful with that. I
Mm-hmm.
started off slow. I learned how to do everything myself, and over time I have been delegating more. So now for the most part I just record. I have somebody that does the editing. I have somebody else who sends the emails and uploads and all that stuff. So that's been helpful from a time management standpoint. And I think it was good that I did do it for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit of a nerd and just like to learn things anyway. So that was kind of cool. It was during COVID. As far as sort of batching and things like that, that is a great technique. And if I'm totally honest, I would like to improve in that area.
Yeah.
The hard part for me is that I enjoy doing them in real time. And that's not necessarily the best move for time management. So I think I would say it's a combination. I am going, especially with the holidays and the busyness that's happening. I am going to batch a bunch of episodes in the very near future. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. I oftentimes am just shooting an episode that's going to be out in a couple of weeks, and I stay on top of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I time block it.
I know. I think what you're speaking to is perfect, because it demonstrates this idea that we don't always have it all figured out. That like successful people
Yeah.
don't have everything mapped out perfectly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has changed over time, right? I mean, I think about the same for me, that like what works for a little while suddenly can shift and not work. And also as you grow, it really is about delegating and outsourcing and learning how to do that. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe we're taking some things on ourselves early on, which can be valuable learning. It can also help you to appreciate when you do outsource
Yeah.
it. You just know how much is involved in those steps, right? And I think that what you're speaking to is you're continuously learning, you're staying intentional about it, you're staying ahead of it, but you're also thinking about like, here's what I'm doing well, here's in the areas that I can improve, which is sort of how you just answered that question, which I think was perfect. I'm
Yep.
curious what other forms of marketing have been instrumental for you in growing your business. One example that I'm thinking of that I know you and I have spoken to a lot that I think you're really good at, and I hope you know this, is just presentations, workshops, and other people's communities. Billy, you more than
Mm-hmm.
almost anybody, you take fast action and you are leveraging
Mm-hmm.
other people's communities. You aren't trying to, yes, you have your podcast and you're absolutely creating
Yep.
a community from scratch with that, but you are also tapping into other people's already formed communities. So is that a strategy that you set out like intentionally? Was that something you just, that's who you are?
Yeah.
Or what other options have you sort of explored?
Yeah, this is so good. We could talk about this all day. I do the podcast like you mentioned, and that is a good form of marketing. I think that's even good. I'll just throw this out there if anyone's interested. I think it's even good from a perception standpoint, even though they might not even find me from the podcast. It's kind of like being an author. Like if you're I'm the host of the leading podcast, right? So it's like, of course, I'm the guy if they want help. So I think it's good from a positioning standpoint. Writing a book, another example of that. I To your point, there's very few things, if any, more powerful than presenting in front of a captive audience. You're the perceived expert. You're literally helping them. In some cases, you're actually coaching them. And it's such a great way to connect with them. I think the other thing that I've been really intentional about, and I'm continuing this because I think there's a danger of you stop doing the thing that's working, and
Hmm.
that is connecting genuinely with people. I mean, it's so simple,
Hmm.
right? But just
Oh,
connecting with
yes.
people on a regular basis, little things. I presented at a big conference last year. I just wrote the guy a holiday card, like just little things like that. I know there's 500 other people trying to get in those speaking spots. So something's got to be a little bit different about me to stay on the minds. And I think that kind of stuff I think is really overlooked and not hard and fun. I enjoy it. I love people. I genuinely like the guy, and I hope I speak. But if I don't, I still want to be have a good relationship.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for saying that because it really is. It's not about being strategic or scripted, or it's really about being genuine, right? Like if you love
Mm-hmm.
what you do, you lead with the ability or your desire to help people and make those connections, even if something doesn't come from it in the next week or month or quarter even. It's like that connection will pay off over time. And I don't just mean like in ROI or revenue or profit. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. I just mean pay off either in having a connection, somebody that you can support each other in different ways, you can encourage each other and all of that. I absolutely love that. So I love, Billy, how your personal story, your professional story seemed very separate and now has come together to sort of all make total sense. And I absolutely love that. And I actually want to touch on something really quickly because I can hear some laughter and squeals and just joyful sounds in the background from your family. And I also think that this is an element. Listen, I don't know if you're about to do this, but please don't apologize. I absolutely love it. I think it is just very real. And I think sometimes we try to edit out the natural personal elements of who we are. And I actually think our clients are attracted to that. I mean, if we're trying to be perfect on coaching calls, then our clients think that they have to schedule calls when it's absolutely perfect for them. There's so many times where we're on coaching calls with our clients and their kids are running up to them asking for a snack and saying, Mom, I need to use the bathroom, or whatever the case may be, depending on how little their kids are. And I don't think we should shy away from necessarily that element. And I'm curious if that is something that you just have sort of been like, listen, this is my life, it's the way it works, or if do you feel worried about it? I'm just curious if you could speak to that a little bit. I know I'm putting you on the spot a
Man,
little bit because I didn't ask you about it.
that's such a real time question. I am going to read a text that I just wrote to my wife, and it says, "Can you keep the kids down a bit?" And then I said, "Love you," because it's and it's not their problem. So this is my home office, and I had a live virtual summit before this. I wanted to do it here because I'm so comfortable here. I have
Hmm.
an office space, but it's like hard to move things. I don't have it set up the way, so I had to be here today. We had this scheduled. Yeah, I think at some level you have to go with the flow. I am somewhat intentional about being mindful of those things. Like if I
Sure.
didn't have the summit before that, I would have done this at the office just because I could, right? But if I
Hmm.
can't, I can't. So it's like all I can do is all I can do, kind of thing. But I appreciate
Yeah.
you saying that and accepting me for the kids out there. We have four and expecting another. So
Yeah. I mean, listen, Billy, what I hear is an absolute joyful life and family behind you. I think it speaks a lot to who you are as a person, not just as a coach or, a personal trainer or business gym owner, like all those types of things, but just obviously there's a lot of happiness and fulfillment in your life.
mhm.
And I can hear it clear as day. And I think it's a wonderful thing. So I feel honored to have been able to listen to it. So I am curious, what is one piece of advice that you would love to give newer financial coaches?
All right. If you're a newer financial coach, it is so easy to fall into a trap of, if something doesn't work out, if you ask somebody to try your services or you try to set up a one-on-one with somebody and you get turned down, it's so easy to let that discouragement get the best of you. But whatever it takes from a mindset standpoint, realize that is part of the journey. Like if I'm being real, like I'm starting this mastermind and thankfully it's going really well. With that said, I had a guy reach out that he signed up for it and then he changed his mind. He just texted me that. I'm not happy about that. But honestly, my mindset is sad because I wanted him, but I'm not slowing down because of that. It's nothing. It's no reflection on me. If you put yourself out there and it doesn't work out how you hope, it's not a reflection on you. It's just that person wasn't ready. There's a million reasons why. So just keep doing your best work, control what you can control. And I truly believe that things do have a way of working out when you embrace that mindset.
I completely agree with you. Like those types of things, like you said, are part of the journey for every single one of us. I have never had a coach in any of my programs. I've never had a client who hasn't experienced bumps in the road. For all of us, it's about having that long-term focus of like, no matter what, I'm committed to this journey. And like you said, it's not a reflection on me. I just got to keep moving forward. And listen, we can all have bad days or get into a funk or be like, oh, that stung a little bit. Of course, right? Let's be honest. And also, it doesn't stop you. Right. I completely agree with you on that. Thank you for sharing that because I think that is great advice. So I'm curious, Billy, as we're wrapping up here, how can coaches or others listening to this episode, because we do get lots of just everyday individuals who listen to this podcast too, how can they find you?
I would say if there's any interest in the podcast, you definitely check that out. But also just on social media, it's Billy Hofacker on Instagram. We can connect there and catch up and see what's going on. And yeah, just connect.
Great. I love that. Okay. So next episode, thank you so much, Billy, for your time. I really appreciate it. Next week, we are kicking off a new topic that we haven't talked about yet, delighting your clients and making a good first impression. But we also have a really exciting announcement too. We are coming up on our 100th podcast episode, and we would love to celebrate with you. There will be more in your inbox soon. So if you are on our list, that's where you'll want to check. But also you can listen in to next week. So make sure you hit subscribe to the podcast. And if you don't get our emails, head over to financialcoachacademy.com/subscribe. Again, that's financialcoachacademy.com/subscribe, or hit subscribe and you'll hear a little bit more details on next week's episode. And I will see you next week, Coach. I believe financial coaching is the best and most rewarding way to make a living. I truly love what I do. If you're ready to learn and see how to become a profitable, successful financial coach, check us out at financialcoachacademy.com to learn more about our online courses, free trainings, and events. As always, I love hearing from you. If you have any questions for the FCA podcast or to share your thoughts on the reflection question from today's episode, go to financialcoachacademy.com/podcast. And if you love this podcast, hit the thumbs up button on today's episode, subscribe, and leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. It would mean the world to me. I'll see you next week, Coach.